So something I was talking about with a mum the other day is we're talking about supporting her daughter through an exam season. And they were getting very sort of stuck on a particular subject that her child seemed to struggle with. And it was taking over, the exam. It was all focused on this subject that they were struggling with. And when we talked about it, it was like, well, all the other subjects seem to be okay. Like the student actually felt like, what, I think it'll be tough, but I can get through it. And I think in the end, and then they came up with a lovely phrase. It was sort of like care less without being careless.
Wow.
And I thought that was a great way of phrasing it because it's like, you know what, there are just going to be some areas that we struggle. And I think there is maybe this, the kind of growth mindset mentality, which is, look, what do we mean when we say failure and how I think that's something that we really need to bed in very early on for all our students, but especially when, you have a learning difference. It's that sense of what does failure mean? It's like you said, your son kind of saying, look, when I go for an assessment, they show me the areas that I'm struggling with or that I find harder. It doesn't mean you can't adapt, and it doesn't mean you can't find a way, and it doesn't mean you can't get access to that maybe in a different way. And it's about knowing that and understanding it and then finding a way around. Um, and I think just that sort of shifting mindset and the focus on that, and somehow trying to put that into exams being, we're going to go in, we're going to do our best, but one, there is a world beyond exams and
Really.
grades. And, secondly, it just shows us those areas that we might need to get some more support in. But I think it can be hard when you're saying that as a parent and the system doesn't reflect that.
That's a really, really good point. It's something I think about, and actually talk about it quite a lot too, is it's really important to put it into perspective. Um, I think also really, to me, vital to be honest with your kids. So um, always say honestly, this is really, really hard. This is really hard. This is just a nightmare. The pressure on you guys is just absolutely horrendous. But you have to realize that it will be over and you will sit down, you will do the very, very best you can. And you, once they're over, you can tick that off and then breathe. And then you have to understand that there's the demand for what you're aiming for is enormous as well. So,
Mm.
even if you don't succeed in going to that one school that you really thought you had to go to because Annabelle was going or whoever was going to go there, the right school will come to you,
Yeah.
will happen. But you don't need to worry about that. That's my job. I'll worry about all the school stuff, but it's your thing to do the best you can do, showing, and that's what it is they want to know how well you can do. The SATs have just finished here, and those are really hard for some of my students. And I said, but you did the best you could do. Yeah, I did. I really did. So.
Yeah. 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 And I think maybe that leads into, that sort of question I was asking you earlier, if a child says, I can't do it. I think it is that enabling of, you can do what you can do, you can do it. It's just, I guess when you say I can't do it, there's a sense that it's global and it's forever and it will never work. But are there specific things you tend to say to sort of students who say can't do it? Like
Yeah.
what would your response be?
Yeah. So, for example, I said, so what is it that's really you just really just don't understand? Physics comes up quite a lot, I have to say, but I can't do creative writing. Boys, sadly, say that a lot. So, yeah, I know it's really hard. Okay, well, let's figure this out. And I have different skills of ways that I help them come up with really great creative writing. And and one, this lovely student who's going to university in September, and I haven't worked with him for a few years, but he wants to be an author. He literally could not, oh my gosh, he could not. He literally couldn't write. So it is go right back to this confidence. It goes back to I can't do it, is breaking up the problem, which we all know. We all use that skill. How am I ever going to do these? Okay, well, I'm just going to do one thing at a time, and.
Okay.
Um, and for example, just being creative about how you learn. I recently, one of my students was really, really struggling with their times tables, and they just constantly were assessing them, and they were failing every single time with their times tables. It was. So I suggested to the parents to get them out on a bicycle, stand in the middle in the park, and get them to cycle around them on their bicycle and do their times tables. By the end of the weekend, he knew them all.
Wow.
He's moving.
Okay.
So what he was doing, he was moving, he was focusing on his bicycle. He knew them. They were in there somewhere. And with the mother standing there in the middle, and then they were, turning into a bit of a rote thing, and then she mixed them all up as well. And there are will always be gaps in his timetables, but now
Yeah.
he's also good at sort of adding up to get to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he said
Yeah.
he closed the gaps, and yeah, just.
Yeah.
But if you think about if you have a problem and you go for a walk or a run or drive the car or whatever it is, oh my gosh, you just without even knowing you've kind of solved that problem. So the
Yeah.
same goes for studying. It's just like I just can't do this, whatever it is. Then, okay, we'll have a break and let's think how we can do it. Come in the kitchen and can you just help me cook some whatever it is? And then, whilst you're doing that, just put your book right there and we'll just, so what is that you do? Oh yeah, I know. That's really, can you just
Yeah.
put that yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's funny you talk about in therapy, you see we have this EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. We use it specifically around trauma, but around other difficulties. And its principle is we're activating two sides of the brain at the same time. So it came from Shapiro, who went out for a walk, realized by the time I came back, the problem I had was solved. And so this is what we're doing. We're sort of activating a movement system while we're kind of letting the brain sort of do some more kind of like internal processing. And it's actually interesting that, yes, maybe where we block that kind of rising emotional sort of dysregulation, I guess, that comes from having to sit and concentrate and focus and, really learn in a way that doesn't feel natural and normal to you. I guess, shifting that is useful. So I love that in the sense of someone saying, I can't do it. Maybe it's like, I can't do it this way,
Yeah.
but there's another way I can do it. And it's about finding that. I often say to people who are struggling and like, I don't get maths. And like, it's not that you don't get maths, it's that you don't get the way it's being taught to you. And it's about trying to discover or find what works for you. So yeah, no, I really love that.
A
And
good tip
just
a good tip for me is BBC Bite Size. Although I hear that they're sort of struggling, but they are absolutely amazing. The resources they have on BBC Bite Size,
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah. Yeah, and I think something that would be great is to just maybe sort of ask for a couple of resources. I know one that obviously you recommended, I always recommend to everyone, is Made by Dyslexia, and which is it's just a great, it's a great organization. It's really helpful, and I think it's a very empowering message that we're getting through that. So I just wanted to kind of ask, if we're trying to set up the environment at home, I think you've sort of given some ideas of even the idea of being able to move rooms is a good thing. Are there other things you would say, look, just consider or just think about in terms of supporting your child when they're studying at home?
So I think a really big thing, and I think this is for absolutely every one of my students, is do not put your books away. This is when you're like in the really thick of GCSEs and A levels. Don't tidy them all up and put them away. Just leave them out.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
one of the things for moving. Even if you then move that whole pile somewhere else, it's something to do with it. And I don't, woo, you would know more about this. I always feel it's something to do is when you close them off, then you're sort of saying, okay, you've done that. I
Right.
mean, you might have come to the end of doing that, but save that really tidying it all away. Obviously, this does not work for my OCD students, actually, not just, but
Same.
if you're tidying
I'm
them,
having anxiety just hearing about it. I'm like,
oh,
what?
really, yeah. So it's just, I mean,
Tidy everything.
I'm not talking about a big mess, but just like
No, 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 no. Yeah.
keep things open.
Keeping
Don't
chapters
like lose
open.
that page, and
Yeah. Yeah.
um, because then you can save
Yeah.
that real tidying up for when, oh my gosh, I've done that exam, tidy gone.
Right.
That works quite well. Yeah, I um, I think breaks,
Great. Yeah.
whatever breaks work, different kinds of breaks, snacks that are there, taking the phone away. I've
Yeah.
heard recently some children in Dubai. I was helping out a student in Dubai, and um, they all go to a coffee shop and leave their phones behind. Well, they don't leave them behind. Obviously, they're in their bag or something.
Yeah.
Go together, they don't talk, they study together, and they don't use their phones, and they support each other with that.
Nice. Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
laptops, obviously,
Yeah. But not
with sitting
phones.
out from the house. It's, that's, but of course, you have to be a certain age to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so there's something there, isn't there, about just looking at the environment and then obviously, like you said, doing what works and what's possible for your family, but it's trying to be as creative and supportive as possible. And I think not sort of trying to fit your child into what looks to you like concentrated study. And I think that's a big one. So, we have it where I'll go in and see my daughter and she's lying down. Like, oh, that's not studying. Because to me, studying is I'm sitting at my desk and I'm concentrating, but we need the movement and we need, and as long as it's working and it's, they're able to feel relaxed enough to take in the information. I think that's the goal, right? And that taking in the information, like you said, might look like riding a bike, might look like, moving around and talking to myself, might look very different to the sort of classic
Mm.
idea of what studying looks like.
You can do a lot
So,
of, like, you can record yourself, and then play it back. Some people really don't like that. Sometimes I get my students to read their text in a funny accent, uh,
mhm.
just making their
It's a
mind
few
work in a
breaks.
different accent and just reading it. Um, just yeah, I'm trying to think all the it's I don't even know how I come up with these ideas, but it's just really listening to them and supporting them because they all do it so enormously differently.
Right. Yeah.
Every single student, every single student is different.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that's an important point as well. It's like, these are all tips and ideas, but ultimately I also say to people, it's often trial and error where we're like testing out different things and we'll find those one or two things that we rely on and we'll keep those and we'll use those. So, you know, professionals can suggest things, but then you've got to test them out and adapt them and see what works and what works with your sort of family setup and what's reasonable. And I know I've left this question right to the end, but there's something here about school, like parents working with school, like for exams. If we had to just ask for, let's say, two or three things that like a school could do to support around exams for our child, what would you say would be top of the list? It's a very big question. I do get that.
Interesting. I think it depends on the ages. So just if we go bring it right back to just normal everyday, end of the year exams. Um, I think that if they can keep them, manageable timing,
Okay.
really would be really important so that the schools would understand. So, and again, it's very important that the children understand exam conditions, but they don't usually start like doing them in a big hall in rows and desks for quite a while. I think here they start that in year five, really, so that they
Yeah.
get that feel. Um, but end of year exams, you don't really have to do that. And I think that, breaking them up, giving them time to some good notes, although sometimes I have, yeah, but yes, good study notes is really helpful to help them focus that they can then go through them and say, okay, I've done that page. Oh yeah, I have to understand a bit more of that. And, um,
Okay.
but empathy and, thinking about what's going on at home, because it's not necessarily that the child who's sitting that exam is um, not prepared, because maybe they are prepared, but there might be goodness knows what going on at home that they're dealing with. Um, and it could just be internal body things that they're dealing with. So, there's being aware
Yeah.
of that, what
Yeah.
age,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
their bodies are changing, who said what, don't
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is definitely that, like if I ever do work with schools, and some of my kind of suggestion is always, if a child isn't emotionally regulated, we're not ready to learn. We're not, and there's no teaching that, we're really then putting in support that they can't even access. So maybe that's, one of the key things parents can be sort of, like you said, even teachers can be looking out for is, where is this child emotionally before we even get started. So doing things that help them calm
Yeah.
and ground and feel emotionally ready to sort of access. But I guess you were saying earlier, time is a big one, isn't it? It's a big one. More time, things sectioned up, and those sorts of things would help enormously. So, I
I think
mean, we
communicating with, sorry, the I think the parents find it a little, don't understand how important it is for parents to communicate with the teachers. It's
yeah,
absolutely so essential. Um, and I say to the parents, well, have you told them this is going on at home? No, no, well, it's not really. I said, it's really, really would really help. If you feel uncomfortable doing it, then obviously don't. But it really is important. We see this every day, and we're looking at your child, working with your child, and thinking, what is going on here? And if we'd known, or if we get a bit of a heads up, then it just makes everything work better and better for your child. So that communication, they're not studying, they're lying on, not like your daughter, but they're lying on their bed and actually, really lying on their bed.
yeah, yeah,
Tell the school, let them know.
yeah,
And hopefully the school will react in the way that you want them to react.
yeah. And I think that is a thing, isn't it? It's just that communication, because children spend so many hours of the day at school, so many months of the year in that environment. So there really is that, hopefully, that handover and that crossover with what we're doing at home that's helping can go into school, and what they're doing at school that's helpful can hopefully transfer
Yeah.
to the home environment. But yeah, I mean, I think, there's definitely, it's a huge topic. There's definitely lots and lots to sort of think about and talk about, but it just really helpful being able to hear, some of the ideas you come up with. I love the creativity element of it. It's not really, I wasn't brought up that way. I was brought up with a very kind of, formal, you sit at your desk and study, and that's what studying looks like. So it's just shifting, I think, for a lot of us as parents is a big one, right? And even just like you said, acknowledging that there is a difficulty and that we need to address it rather than move away from it or pretend like it's not actually difficult. Um, So yeah, I mean, it was amazing chatting to you. Thank you for your time. I think I'd love to sort of do another chat later. So let's see, if there are any sort of real follow-on hot topics that come off the back of our initial chat. Then we'll be in touch. But if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that? Because I know personally that there are lots of parents that really could do with some of the support that you give.
That's lovely. Well, yes, I mean, phone and email. Um, how do you want me to just say it?
Yeah, go on. Let's give it a plug. So it's the website. You've got a website,
I
right?
have a
We can
website.
do.
It's amanda.stocker.co.uk, and my email is amanda.stocker, STOCKER, at icloud.com. And my London mobile is 07900 317 444.
Amazing. So we'll put the captions up so people can actually see those, and we'll make sure that we send that information along with any videos we send. So Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kasia.
And it
Nice
was
to see
lovely
you.
speaking to you.